Before we get into today's battle, let's address one of the biggest debates in the whiskey world. Who invented whiskey? Well, if you ask the Irish, they'll tell you that it was them. If you ask the Scottish, they'll give you a different story. But the story goes back to the Irish monks, who are believed to have brought the art of distillation back from the Mediterranean sometime around the 6th century. That's a long time ago. So instead of making perfumes, they started distilling a spirit, and they called it uisce beatha, meaning water of life. I'm sure you've heard that quite a lot. So over time, that Gaelic phrase was shortened to uisce and eventually became the word whiskey, as we know today. Scotland, of course, will tell you that it was completely different than that, and their whiskey records date back to 1494, and from there Scotland developed its own unique, effectively transitions, and styles. So, which makes Scotch famous around the world, really. So, who really invented whiskey? Well, the truth is that nobody knows. Nobody knows for absolute certain. Distillation itself was invented long before, I think, either country was making whiskey. And much of the early history wasn't well documented. So, what we do know is that Ireland and Scotland certainly have a long history for making whiskey, and they do so in their own remarkable way. So today we're not really settling the history debate. We're going to have a look at a much more enjoyable one, and that who makes the better whiskey. Now, to be honest, it's very subjective, isn't it? Because I could come up with some fantastic Irish cask strength drams, maybe a Redbreast 15 or a Copper Top cask strength, and on the other side we could come up with some absolutely amazing Scotch whiskey. So it is, keep in mind, it is subjective. Now, I am Irish. I'm going to not try and be biased whatsoever, right? But first thing I'm going to do is, obviously let's have a look at the bottles first. Okay, so we've got the Black Bush Irish whiskey. It's a classic, 1608, because it's the oldest whiskey distillery in the world that obtained a license. So that gives you an indication of something at least. It's 40% volume, and it's a very, very popular dram. It is available a lot in restaurants, bars across the world. Powers whiskey is very, very popular in Ireland itself. Again, simple 40% dram. I don't know a hell of a lot about it, to be honest. This one is a newer distillery. It's one of the more recent distilleries. It's Waterford, and it's the Cuvée, and it's 50% volume. Now, you will notice that all three Irish whiskies, 1, 2, 3, are no-age statements, as opposed to. However, one thing I'm going to say about this Waterford New Age whiskey is I do not like this glass stopper. It's hard to get off, doesn't pop. I don't like that. I just don't bloody like it. Anyway, right, let's move over to Scotland. What are they going to throw at us? We've got the Benriach, the original 10. It's a 10-year-old single malt, 43%. Very solid dram. A Tomatin, 12-year-old, another 43%. So look, we're punching a little bit above, maybe, I don't know, is it fair? Tullibardine, 225, finished in a wine cask, because who was it that, I can't remember the name of the guy that brought this into a wine cask situation. It's 43%, so these are all 43% interestingly, and this is a no-age statement. So the first objective for me is I'm going to nose each glass, and what I'm looking for is not something fantastic. What I'm looking for is something that I don't like, because that is always a good indication. Hi guys, not often you get something for free, completely free in the whiskey industry. My tasting chart with all the descriptors are on there. Download it for free in the link below. Sláinte. Black Bush. Yep. Smells quite nice. Nothing wrong with that. Caramel, creamy. Slightly different. This is the Powers. Powers Gold label, triple distilled, and you will understand, of course, that the Irish whiskies are triple distilled as opposed to the Scottish whiskies that are only double distilled. So what happens when you triple distill something against something that is triple distilled? Sorry, double distilled. The triple distilled whiskies are going to be, in essence, slightly more refined because you're 3 times distilling it, and a little bit lighter in body. Now that is a trait of Irish whiskey. So we have to understand that in any kind of comparison that we do, don't we? So Benriach. Okay, bourbon barrel. Now Tomatin. Now 1, 2, 3. We're under our 4th. I'm not saying there's anything off or it smells bad. There's not, but there's not much going on. Sorry, I've got mixed up here, haven't I? That was the Benriach. So the Benriach, there's not much going on. The Tomatin, again, quite mild. Tullibardine, 225, Sauternes cask, wine cask. Oh, wow. I mean, really stands out as on the nose, like extremely mild. Oh, extremely mild, really is. Okay, so look, let's get into it. Black Bush. Let's have a little go on the palate. Obviously, the Bushmills distillery. About 6 years ago, I was in Northern Ireland and I did the Bushmills experience with my father, and it was a long walk. I gotta say, the distillery tour is a long one, but what a fantastic experience! It was exceptional. My mother, she couldn't do the walk, but she stayed back, and the barman got her drunk, so that was even better, right? So 40%. Okay, so what makes it different? Oh, you've got the little bit of smoke coming through, just a little bit. A little bit of peat or smoke. It's very, very nice. It's sweet, but it's drying. There is a drying note in this. Raisins, caramel. And I think it's known for being a value for money dram. There's nothing wrong with it. It's got character. I've got to say, it's got character. There's definitely a little bit of something going on, and it's not as boring as I thought it might be. It's not that light. It does have that sort of a little bit of something, a little bit of smoke going on there. So that's absolutely not bad at all. Good start from the Irish, I've got to say. All right, Powers. Now this is one that I have not tried. Powers whiskey. It smells slightly different, and it's one of Ireland's oldest whiskey brands. In fact, all the way back to 1791, would you believe, for Powers, and I haven't tasted the goddamn thing. So Middleton Distillery, 40%. Classic pot still whiskey. and it has a bit more character and spice. I don't think it has compared to the Black Bush. Well, I'm not going to say it's bad, but I'm going to say there's a little bit of pepper. Maybe being brutally honest, it's maybe a little boring. Can I say boring? Boring a whiskey tasting note? It's a little boring to me. Remember, all of this is just one man's opinion, right? Because what I like isn't going to be what you like. Now, Waterford, it's one of the newer distilleries in Ireland, and it was founded by the wine expert Mark Reynier with a mission to prove that the terroir, or the land, the influence of where the barley is grown matters just as much as the whiskey. 50 ABV, so it's quite a, it's 100 proof, it's quite a punch, and it is naturally coloured and combines spirit from multiple Irish farms. Now that concerns me a little bit. I'm thinking, so is this a bit of a bastard child, I suppose? I don't know. 50% ABV, it should give us a little bit more. The nose is quite good. And maybe, does a stronger ABV punch more on the nose as well? I don't know. But this one seems to punch a little bit better than these two, so 50% naturally coloured. And, wow, I would, honestly, the 50% carries itself across that whiskey exceptionally well. In fact, it's nearly milder in feeling than the Black Bush or the Powers. You don't notice the extra 10% ABV, which is quite interesting, isn't it? It's actually quite a layered, complex dram, which is really interesting because no age statement is new. It's a modern whiskey. Okay, on to the Scotch. Now, I've got to say that's actually surprising. The Cuvée, 50% ABV, that's surprising. That's very, very nice. Very, very good. I know the Benriach 10, right? It's produced on the Speyside. It's 43%. And it's a combination of sherry and virgin oak casks. So it gives it plenty of complexity, apparently. On the nose, it's light. And it's sort of fruity. It's got that vanilla fruits, orchard sort of fruits going on. Classic Speyside. It's good. And I think we all know Benriach, the classic 10. It is a good dram. We know it's a good dram, but it is a little bit like the Powers, in my opinion. It is good, but slightly lacking in character. Even though it says in the notes and, the tasting notes that it's complex. Yeah, okay. Could it be that my palate's complex? Who knows? Because, yeah, look, it's all right. Okay, not a bad start from Scots. Now, the Tomatin 12-year-old has got an interesting aroma. There's nothing bad in these aromas, but this has got nearly like a toffee note. It's a Highland whiskey. And one of my favourites up there is Glenmorangie for Highland, but anyway. And it's known for its exceptional value. 43%, as we said, single malt, matured primarily in bourbon casks before being finished off in the Oloroso sherry casks. So that's interesting. Okay, so, oh, that's mild, isn't it? It's so so mild. Gee, it even takes you back to an Irish sort of dram because it's so mild. But it does fly under the radar. It's got that sort of dried fruit malt. That's the best way to describe it. It's got a very, very light sort of spice, but sweetness. And again, it's very, very nice. There's nothing exciting, but it's very, very nice. Yeah, okay, let's move on to the Tullibardine. Now, okay, so let's try it. It's a Highland single malt. Starts life in a bourbon barrel before being finished in the 225. That's the name of the bottle, the 225, because it was matured in a 225 litre Sauternes wine cask from France, giving it a different sort of personality complexity. Now it's bottled at 43%. Yes, it's different. There is a difference. It's light, again. There's some tropical fruits going on, like pineapple, mango, that sort of thing happening with this one. Maybe is that the different cask that's coming into play? Wine casks in the industry can divide opinion because everything has to be sherry, PX Pedro Jimenez cask, or bourbon. There's more opportunity moving forward in the bourbon casks because, unfortunately, our sherry-based casks are running out because our old dears and the RSAs and the clubs are not drinking sherry the way they used to do 20, 25, 30 years ago. So it's dying out. And unfortunately, now we're resorting to what you're hearing now in the new bottles is a sherry seasoned cask. Well, you take a virgin oak cask and pump, 40 litres of sherry into it and put it on a rotating belt for, I suppose, a couple of months and pour out the sherry into the next barrel, and you've got yourself a seasoned sherry cask. It's not the same. It's really not the same, and it's never going to produce what an Oloroso PX cask might produce. So we are looking at different opportunities in the market. We're looking for different types of cask. This could well be something to move forward to. And in truth, it's nice. It's quite good. There's nothing wrong with it. So I've got 6 really good. I'd say maybe this one's a little weak. Okay, this one's maybe a little lacking in depth, lacking in body, so I'm not impressed with the powers. I've got to be brutally honest. I would drink this any day of the week, no problem. This I wouldn't recommend. I wouldn't buy it. And yeah, I think my favorite dram out of the lot would be a surprising Waterford. On balance, who would win the night? Wow. This was more complex than anything here because it had that smoky... there was more happening in the mouth. There was more mouth feel going on with the Black Bush. This was weak. This was pretty good. I'd recommend people to maybe look out for this and try it if you can. Maybe it's just simply the extra ABV, the 50%. Yet these all had 43, which was more than these two. So yeah, look, I'm going to give the night over to the Irish on this particular batch. Remember, we can pick different batches and it would be a different result. It's not really, a victory to anyone. Whiskey wins on the night. One thing I would say to you guys is what's going on in the marketplace, what's going on in the economy across the world, everywhere you go. Doesn't matter if it's bourbon, whiskey, whether you're in Tennessee, whether you're in New Zealand, like I am, Auckland, doesn't matter. Support your local distillery if you can, because excise tax kills these guys, it really does. And it's becoming harder and harder to get very, very good barrels, good stock. They work their ass off to try and produce a product, and we really need to get behind them and support them as much as possible. So let me get a dram of my favorite for the night. If you enjoyed the review, please subscribe, because look, it really does help the channel, there's no doubt about it. This has been fun. I've got all these open bottles of whiskey now. I don't know, what am I going to do with them? So, subscribe, look out for the next review. Sláinte, guys.